Guys, welcome back to the Two Mom Life podcast. In today's episode, I have an amazing guest, Kaley Zeitouni, and we are going to get into some stuff today. Kaley has an amazing journey, an amazing story that I think will captivate all of you. I'm really excited to delve into it and to speak to her about what we can learn from her story and how we can take some of what she's learned over the years and apply that to our lives and roles as mothers and Jewish mothers, and in helping our kids get through challenges, helping ourselves, right, push through and really overcome, because Kaley has overcome some big stuff. Without any further ado, Kaley, I'm going to turn it over to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here and really excited to connect with all of our listeners. So you said it, my name is Kaley. I live in Jerusalem today, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And today I have a coaching practice. I do grief coaching for people who've lost a spouse or partner. And I do something called illness recovery coaching. I work with people with chronic illness to get long-lasting relief through the power of the mind. So we're hacking the mind-body connection, as I like to say. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. So I get to work with, we'll just be transparent. It's not light. These are not light topics. But they're incredibly rewarding. So that's me.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And so let's just delve right in. What took you on this journey? How did you get started with illness recovery coaching?
So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, MS, when I was 12 years old. So illness is really all I've ever known. You don't have much of an identity before 12 or even much of like a vision for life. So this is all I've known. And I remember the moment. There were obviously many significant moments through the process of my diagnosis, which is its own whole story. But there was a moment where a doctor, he didn't end up being my doctor, and this was before I even had an official diagnosis, where I was standing next to a neurologist looking at my MRI for the first time. An MRI is a scan of the brain, and you can see multiple sclerosis on the brain. Sclerosis is scars, so you see many scars. You can see those scars on the brain. They're called lesions. 12 years old, standing there looking at it. I couldn't really see very well. I was having vision problems, but I could see the scars that he was pointing out. And I looked at him and I just said, "Can it heal? Can this heal?" And without skipping a beat, without concern for what he was saying to a 12-year-old or what that might feel like for me, he just said no. Just like just brushed it off. Like, no, of course not. Like, it was just the most obvious thing to him, which, by the way, is what science believed at the time. And within a few months, it was already proven that that's wrong. And the brain is actually plastic. It's neuroplasticity is what we call it. You can create new neurons. But it was a profound moment for me because there was a voice deep inside of me that knew that was wrong. And even though as a child, there wasn't anything I could do with that knowledge in that moment, it stayed with me. It stayed with me. And so through years of illness, serious illness, through years of all kinds of symptoms and treatments, and just, it was not fun, to say the least. It was rough. It was really, really rough. Through all of that one voice inside of me, like, he's got to be wrong. The body creates human life. How could the body not heal? How is that possible? That doesn't make any sense. That belief, that voice stayed with me. And so years later, in my 20s, I finally set out to kind of understand that voice, where it came from, what was the truth behind that, and how could I apply that to my own life, and would it be possible to heal my body and live disease-free, live symptom-free? And that's how that journey started. And so I spent years understanding the mind-body connection, and today I'm completely symptom-free, thank God. So that's how it started.
Well, I mean, that is remarkable. And it's it's just unbelievable that at the age of 12, you were questioning that. You weren't taking that at face value. You were really, in just like taken aback by that and thinking this can't be, at the age of 12.
At the age of 12, I think about that moment a lot, obviously. I also get asked about that moment a lot. So I think in the process, I learn more and more about it. And in some ways, as children, we're so much more connected to our intuition. And so I believe that was intuition. I really, really do. I think it's also really easy for us to tell children, just listen to authority. We want them to listen to us, right? Parents, you want your kids to listen to you. And yet there's something so important about honoring a child's wisdom and intuition. And so, sometimes I tell myself like that moment was a miracle that I had that voice. And other times I'm just like, or maybe it was just the most normal thing in the world. And as adults, we've been trained to listen to an authority figure, but just because he's a medical doctor, and I very much appreciate medical doctors, doesn't mean he knows everything. And I found this especially through the process of my diagnosis, for all the moms listening, listen to your kids, like trust them,
Did you share that intuition with your parents at the time?
No, I didn't. We were kind of all in a massive state of shock. I mean, my parents and I were absorbing moment to moment. We didn't have a lot of communication around what was going on. I don't think any of us had the tools to communicate around what was happening. It was just kind of like going through the motions. The next doctor appointment, this specialist, after that specialist, after this evaluation and that exam. I don't think we knew how to communicate around it. So I didn't share that with them until a couple of years later, how much that moment had stood out to me. I know that, they were shocked by that moment. Like, how could you just say that to our child? But yeah.
Yeah, without the tools, it's hard to know what to do next.
Yeah.
Tell us more about your journey. Tell us about what it was like having that diagnosis. What was it like living with that as a teenager, as a child, every day? What was it like, going to school? What was it like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Well, the first 60 days I didn't go to school. I couldn't open my eyes because of different symptoms that were happening with my eyesight. It was just nauseating to open my eyes. So that was my introduction to this illness, was just not being able to participate, not being able to be a normal kid, and feeling really, really limited. So once I started to balance out, the type of MS I was diagnosed with is called relapsing-remitting, which means you can go into remission and then you have a relapse. So after that initial relapse, as I started to go into remission, it really shaped the person I've become. And at a very young age, I just said, okay, I want to participate. I want to be I want to be having as much fun as I can. I want to be enjoying my friends as much as I can. I want to get the most out of school, not in terms of even academia, just being in an environment, and socializing. And so it really influenced how I made certain choices, and knowing that at any moment I might not be able to walk or see made a massive, impact on how I approached middle school and high school. It also greatly altered my friendships. I was really, really, really blessed to have incredible friends who, listen, they had to learn about the disease. And I mean, they didn't have to, I guess it was really their choice, which is what was such a blessing, right?
Yeah.
That was their choice. And so that meant that sometimes as a group, we wouldn't do something because I wasn't feeling well that day. And as kids, that can be really hard to understand and that was always their choice. They always opted for that they really led with that, which was an amazing gift to me. And, even my best friend at the time learned to give me my injections so that I could go to the overnights at school, so that I could do sleepovers. So that we went to camp in Oregon, actually. We went to summer camp in Oregon because, well, heat is really bad for MS. So I couldn't go to camp in California, where I'm from, where I grew up. And, so yes, there's a nurse and everything else, but she learned to give me shots. Like
and you were giving yourself shots every day, or what? Like
every day.
Yeah. From the age of 12?
From the age of 12. I mean, about a month after my diagnosis, I started giving myself shots, and until like junior year of high school. And then I switched to once a week. It was a different drug. So it was just like, and that was actually the hardest part, I have to be honest with you, was the treatment. And it was, for some reason, easier for me to swallow having a disease. Maybe because I believed somehow my body would work this out one day, than to swallow that I was gonna have to give myself injections every day. That was the only moment I cried. That was my freak out. For 3 months in the process of diagnosis, I didn't freak out. The day I found out it was gonna be injections, that was the only time I freaked out, which is really bizarre. Needless to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really blessed with immense resilience, which now as an adult, I realize it was resilient, but it wasn't necessarily healthy. It wasn't necessarily healthy coping. And, I know you didn't ask this, but I'm just thinking about it now for our audience. Kids often feel like they have to be strong for others, and every kid is different. But it's really important to keep an eye on that kid, the kid who just naturally sucks it up, takes care of things, like takes care of the other siblings, whatever it might be, and realize that like they might seem super strong and you might be praising them all the time for how strong they are and how positive they are and how helpful they are. But there's probably a lot more going on underneath. And just because they're strong and managing doesn't mean they don't also need that hug and that parenting, and to just tune into that, because I'm only beginning to realize this more and more as an adult now, that resilience, which got me through so much, wasn't necessarily the most honoring of what I was actually experiencing inside. I didn't give myself space for what was happening internally.
That strong kid was you. You were that.
Oh, yeah.
You were that strong kid who always was looking out for other people and always had it together. And you're probably very sensitive, right?
Super sensitive, but I wouldn't have said that about myself as a child. I just would have been like, I'm strong. I'm like the warrior and just have to keep going through. Now I recognize like, I just could feel that. I could feel what was going on for my parents. I could feel what this meant for my family. And so I couldn't add to that with however I was feeling, none of that happens consciously, by the way, right? Like I didn't think through these things, but I recognize now, like how come I didn't cry? Like that's so odd to me, how is that? And also now we live in a time with a lot more awareness of psychology and child psychology and family systems, that there are a lot more resources available for a moment like that,
Did your parents cry in front of you, like in the doctor's offices, let's say?
No one cried in front of me in the beginning, but I knew they were having a hard time. There were definitely moments where they couldn't really hold it together and would just have to just like walk away for a minute, which I only as an adult began to understand, like, what happened that day that so-and-so just walked away? Like, what was that? Like, she probably needed, my mom probably just needed a breather, and she needed to let out her own fear, and like how terrifying to watch this happen to your child. And she didn't want to break in front of me. So I could feel that something was wrong, but I didn't see it with my own eyes.
So you were
Yeah.
describing how you were really blessed through your middle school, high school years to have these amazing friends, to have a family that cared about you.
Yeah.
When was the point that you told yourself, hey, like or was there a point where you said, I'm going to get through this and I'm going to like put this disease away and let it be a thing of my past? Now you're symptom free. Like you don't live with MS anymore, right? You're cured.
I've been symptom free for 10 years. Well, they don't say there's a cure, but that's the medical system. I don't necessarily buy into. Yeah, I've been symptom free for 10 years. That moment really came for me in my mid-20s. It was a really ironic moment. I had just moved to Israel, and with MS, when a person goes through a lot of stress, it's expected that you're going to have what we talked about, a relapse, a lot of symptoms at once. It's just par for the course. And a move to another country is certainly a lot of stress. And so we all expected something was going to happen. My doctors, my parents, me, it was just a given. And I landed and everything was fine. And a few days later, everything was fine. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day and I couldn't use my hands.
Okay.
And I was relieved. And I had this moment where I was like, wait a second. You're relieved that at least it wasn't your eyesight. At least you can walk. At least it's just the hands. That's all. And that was the moment where I said, okay, enough is enough. Like, this is not a way to live. Like, that's not acceptable to feel like relief because I can't use my hands.
And so just to back up 1 second, as a child, like how often did this happen that you did relapse?
I had it's really, there's like a medical definition for what counts as a relapse. And so I would have that on average once or twice a year. But then
it would last for how long at a time?
Sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 6 months.
Okay.
So it's hard to say, the good years, it would be like, one relapse, 2 weeks, and then I was back in business. The challenge though, is that even if it doesn't get qualified as a relapse, I could have a day where I just can't move and I'm just stuck in bed that day. That was that. Or a day where I would be in excruciating pain. Pain is by far, in my opinion, the worst symptom of MS or of autoimmune diseases, because no one sees it and it's excruciating, it's debilitating, you can't function, you can't think straight, and sometimes you start to feel crazy. Like there were days where I was convinced my legs were on fire and would be scared to like look under the blankets because like for sure I'm gonna see that they're burning, and they wouldn't be. And they can't do anything for you. Like I would beg my parents, please take me to the emergency room. And I can't imagine what it was like for them to just have to look at me and be like, but we both know there's nothing they can do for you there. Like all the morphine in the world doesn't take that away. So, right. So, it's just, it was, so every day was different. And hour by hour too. Like I could have a really good morning and then all of a sudden my hands would go out or my legs so there were the day to day, and then there was like the relapses.
Okay. Thank you. So fast forward, you're in your 20s, you just moved to Israel.
Yeah.
I mean,
everyone thought I was crazy to do, but yeah. Okay,
but you did it. It shows like, it goes back to, again, that essence of who you are. Right. And like, you do what you stand for. Like,
well, when life is so short and like, you have to do what you believe in, and I learned that at such a young age. And I was reinforced for that also at a very young age. We didn't even touch on this, but a couple years after I was diagnosed, I started a nonprofit called Youth Against MS with my friends, and we raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I was being shown at a very young age, you could do whatever you want. Like you should go enjoy and get the most out of life that you can. So I very early on was not the kind of person who was going to say no to something just because, something might go wrong. That was not me.
Okay. Yeah. So fast forward, you're in Israel, you feel relief that it's just your hand that's not working. Tell us more.
So like, what was the next step?
Yeah.
Listen, I really believe that once you make a decision in life, and it's a conviction, all the pieces fall into place. The teachers arrive, the guides arrive, and you know, God works it out. And so I started to learn everything I could about the mind-body connection. I started with something called emotional freedom technique, also known as EFT or tapping. And that allowed me to start to understand how emotions are stored in the body, because our body is always listening. It's built this way physiologically, right? So when we get scared, our heart races. That's the mind-body connection. And that's a good thing. Like, it's a good thing, because when we were in the middle of, you know, the desert or the jungle and you see a lion, you better hope your heart is going to race like crazy so that you can run like you've never run before. Right. So you need your heart to beat like as fast as possible. So that is how the mind and body work together. So I started to realize and to learn that all these emotions are being stored in our cells, they're being stored in our organs. The body is processing everything for us at all times. So when a symptom would come up, EFT allowed me to start learning, what is the emotion underneath that symptom? What's happening underneath that pain? How can I release that by feeling my feelings? Something we really don't like to do, usually as humans.
As adults, yep.
Right, not fun. Let's avoid that at all costs. I had to learn to feel my feelings, and then it would release. The pain would ease up. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't easy. It took sometimes hours, days of just sitting, tears coming down my face, of just excruciating pain, just believing this was possible and that this would happen, and being with my body instead of against my body or angry at my body until I would figure it out. Because once I realized my body was processing something for me and we weren't against each other, we were on the same team, that made it a lot easier. And then I was like, okay, well, you're not trying to beat me up. You're also suffering. Let me figure this out with you. And I think that is also something that, like, it's so profound to me. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are like in this space, are also coaches and work in this area. And it's so fascinating to get to watch the way that they interact with their children and teach about the relationship with your body, and to talk to the body as if it's like, this is the most important relationship in your life. But we don't even think about it. It's just like, we just take it for granted it's there. But no, you have to be in communication. So EFT started that journey. And then I just started pulling all different kinds of resources. I tried everything. I mean, I just found everything I could, and started to kind of figure out, well, what's the most impactful? What moves the needle? It was a lot of meditation and trying different types of meditation. And ultimately, I had gotten to the point primarily through EFT, where my symptoms had calmed down completely. But I could still tell something was missing. Like, it was still the sense of like, my body is still going to use this if it needs to wake me up, to protect me, our bodies are here to help us. It just doesn't turn out, we don't feel it that way. The way I describe it is like, it's like the 5-year-old knows it's mom's birthday and wants to make mom breakfast. So 6 a.m., that maybe for some of you, it's 5 a.m. The 5-year-old is in the kitchen making breakfast, and it's a mess. It's a disaster, right? There's egg on the ceiling, like there's flour in her hair. It's everywhere.
All over the floor.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So instead of getting breakfast in bed for your birthday, you get to clean on your birthday. Like, sure. It's sort of what happens with the body. The body's like, oh, you're really tired at work. Oh, you really need a break. I can help. Let me help. And the last 5 times that happened, you got a cold and you were so relieved to call in sick because you really did need the break. Well, time number 6 might not be a cold, and now you're upset at the body. But it meant well. It just got its wires crossed, and that kind of backfired. So, you know, I kind of was able to realize I had to learn a lot about what my body was trying to do, how it was trying to help me. And I actually had to thank it. I had to thank my body for what it did for me at 12 years old, and how it felt it was trying to help, and tell it thank you. And I'm an adult now, and I can handle things in different ways now. And I had to make a commitment. This is very, 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 very important. I had to make that commitment that I would listen to my feelings, that I would show up in different ways, that I would live in alignment, that you can't fool the body, right? So it's like telling the kid that they're going to get dessert and expect them to forget about that. That child will remember that you promised dessert, right?
Your body will hold on to that too.
Your body holds on to it, and it will remind you, because it's its job to keep you on track and to help you be your best self. So, because you're in this together. So the moment I said thank you, I was pretty much done.
No, wait, now, did you literally say thank you, body?
Oh, it was much more than that. Yes. Yeah, I literally did. And it was a conversation. It was, again, imagine that this is a relationship. Imagine this is a partner who, this is like one of the most important conversations you're going to have together. And you've worked so hard to get to this point, and you've overcome so much together. You're going to sit down with candles, and you're going to talk this out and just say, I get it now. I get why you were doing all of that. I understand now. And I've been so angry at you. And really, you were just trying to help. And thank you so, so, so much, and it worked for this way and that way. And you saved me through these things as a child. And I didn't even know I needed help in that way. And you did. And thank you. And also, things are different now. And that's the other thing, by the way, with the body, is that once it gets in motion on something, it doesn't always know that the circumstances are different. So, right, that sixth time that you've really needed a break at work, and now it's no longer a cold, but something else is going on, and maybe it's neurological or whatever it is. So the problem is, let's say this person heeds that warning at this stage and changes their lifestyle, is taking better care of themselves, is slowing down, okay? The body didn't get the memo necessarily that you're not going to do this again. And so it's really important. You have to at a certain point, if the body has gotten too used to dis-ease, then the body needs to be reconditioned, which is a lot of what I do with my clients. Is just, learning how to change your lifestyle, listen to the body, really learning how to listen, and then reconditioning the body to wellness, to health. Because again, it's always listening. If your body's always listening and you're always talking about being sick, then your body's hearing sick. It just keeps interpreting sick, sick, sick. So it's just creating more sick cells. So you can be like, when I would be laying in bed in pain, I had to visualize myself healthy, running, vibrant. I had to convince my body that was real, that health was real, and make that more powerful than the current reality. And that's not easy to do without a coach and someone telling you, like, I need you to do that again tomorrow. And I need you to do it again tomorrow until the body figures it out.
No, that's so true. And I hear so much about the power of visualization for anything in life, and so interesting that it holds true in this circumstance as well, that, for health, for anything that you want, if you visualize it enough, and if you really get in, and if you really feel the feelings of what it is like, when you, then you can have it. You can create it. Yeah.
This is how we co-create, this is manifestation. And it's in some ways the easiest to do when it comes to the body, because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. So when I think about like manifestation and getting into those feelings, it's almost easier for me to do that within my body, because we have studies that show this. Your cells actually change depending on what you're thinking, depending on the words you're speaking. The molecules actually change between the words love and hate. The word hate or anger or regret, what a word, right? How many of us feel regret in life? The majority. You look at a cell with that word, it's a disaster. And then you take love and joy and happiness, and they're just these beautiful, perfect molecules. So that to me is like almost easier than like manifesting the car or something, but that's what this is. Visualization to me is prayer. It's prayer without saying, can you please give this to me? It's saying, what would it feel like to be the person who creates that? What would it be like to be the person who lives from vibrant health, who lives in alignment? And we become our own prayers, which I believe is why we're here. I believe in the divine creator who gave me my health and gave me this miracle and all of that. And I also believe that, he wants us to do our part.
Wow. Tell us, and we're running out of time here, but I have one or two more questions for you. Sure. What can we take? This is an audience of moms, and as moms, especially as Jewish moms, we want to do good by our kids. We want to do whatever we can to set them up for success, to help them get through life, to help them approach challenges. And obviously, there's a lot of inner work that we have to do in that as well. But what can we take from your journey, from what you've been through, from what you've learned, and really to really help us in that role, to help our children approach and get through challenges, whether they're health challenges or anything?
Yeah. The first thing I want to say is, like you said, it's inner work. The greatest gift you can give your child is doing the work. The greatest gift you can give your child is to show up for yourself, is to actually practice self-love, not go get the manicure, actually be building self-love every day, be doing those affirmations. My clients, their kids now sing the affirmations that their moms have been saying, and they didn't even realize their kids heard them saying them. And imagine these little girls walking around like, I love myself, I'm beautiful. Like, I know these songs now, and like, that's the greatest gift you give your child, to work through your own traumas, to work through your own past. It's painful, but that is the single greatest gift you can give your child, because whatever your kid is dealing with, it's multiplied by what you're dealing with. And so you heard just from me how whatever I was dealing with, my body created disease. That gets amplified when a parent is also not dealing with their feelings, not processing something. So that, for sure, I just have to say that. I think that's so important. Helping your children overcome a challenge. And we face so many in life. First and foremost, do not worry about what other people think. You cannot worry about judgment. You have to know your kid, trust your kid, and trust yourself, especially as a mom. I think that was one of probably the best things my mom could have done. After every doctor tried to be the authority, she was also like, no. She trusted herself. And had she not, I would have walked out that first day with a diagnosis of an ear infection, and we would have missed something really, really important. So
she advocated.
She was like, I know my kid, and no, that's wrong. Something's wrong, So listen to yourself and be brave enough when you see your child facing a challenge to go there with them. Be brave enough to be the space where they can feel their feelings. You're scared. Imagine how much more scared they are. And to let them explore whatever they need to explore, however they need to explore it. Who cares if I'm just one example I'm thinking of sometimes, or very often, I think especially lately, it means someone has to change schools and there's an issue that, and that can be a really big issue, especially in the Jewish community. Just do what's best for your child. That's all that matters. 20 years from now, what you think is a problem now is not going to be a problem. And to also teach your kids that, perspective, teach them perspective always remind them, not by saying there are kids starving in India or something. That is not the line, right? But instead, always instilling in them gratitude, how lucky you are to have what you are. That is the most important practice you can give a child, because life is going to be hard. And that way, when they face the challenge, you don't instill resilience in the middle of a crisis. Resilience is built every day, every single day, every morning, the way you say I love you, every day, the way you express your gratitude, the way you show up and express your own feelings, and help them cultivate their own awareness and presence with their own feelings. I could do this for days. I love having this. I'm like, I'm just getting started and I'm like, we have to end.
We'll have to do this again, Kaley. We'll have to do this again because it's important to me to keep these episodes short and sweet so that we can all do our laundry and listen as we're folding or in the car to take the kids to school. But I mean, this is gold. Like this is it. This is, we were all put here for a reason. We have our kids because we need to be there for our children, for their souls, to help them grow and live. And I think that the advice that you just gave is absolutely, needs to be taken to heart. And if we all do that, the world will love will just shower down from everywhere.
Yeah,
that's what I'm realizing.
I just have the chills hearing you say that. Like, I'm just thinking, like, what I would give to not. I would love to not have more. If children started a gratitude practice today, I would be out of a job, and I would love that. So, it's the number one. It's the first thing I start every client on. So. Save amazing. Yourself the time and money.
And be great. Yeah, totally. Practice gratitude. And in the meantime, you're doing fantastic work. So tell us about your support group on Facebook. And also, I know you're offering our listeners a discount on your upcoming class, your upcoming course. So tell us about those two things.
Yeah, so we started, a good friend of mine and I started a Facebook group called Staying Centered Through Coronavirus right at the beginning of the pandemic. Anyone is welcome to join. There's a ton of resources there. We go live from time to time. We do meditations with everyone. We give resources for resilience, for managing anxiety, managing fear. This is a really tough time with constant uncertainty. So it's free. Please tap it. Please use it. We have 500 members from all over the world join the community. And I also have a course coming up at the end of February called Get Your Health Back. And it's teaching the foundations, everything that I did to get healthy. It's giving everybody the foundations. It's always a really, really special group. Everybody comes together, supports each other. It's really phenomenal. So for your listeners, we're going to give them a really nice discount. So make sure that if you do join, as much as I want you to come to my website, I want you to just use the link that Jodi gives you for the course. But you can follow me on Instagram. I'm always sharing inspirational things and just day-to-day things that, help us all face being human. It's not easy.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks again for being here. And guys, we'll post the links. We'll post the link to the course and the Facebook group in the show notes so that you can access them at any time. But please, if you want to get in touch with Kaley, do so. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today. I know your time is precious, and I so appreciate that you choose to spend it here with us on the Two Mom Life podcast. See you next time.
Thank you so much for having me, Jodi. Thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners. This has been really special.